Okay, hello everybody, my name is Leslie Williams and this is the second video of a two-part video series, and I'm going to go fly right into the theme of this video, which is basically just a continuation of the previous video that I just completed, and it's an excellent video. Now, that video's YouTube title will be in the description of this YouTube video, and or make sure you look for a video in this YouTube channel that was uploaded on the same date that maybe just hasn't been titled yet. It's about 51 minutes long, or the next 51-minute long video that has been uploaded to this YouTube channel, because the gang stalking of me is picking up an escalation in reference to their tactics and methods that they're bringing about around me, concerning me, and concluding directly. Now, what I'm doing right now is I'm basically going to just pick up where I left off at in the last video, and I'm going to make an addendum. I'm going to make a statement right now that is an actual addendum to what is already described in the other video. In the other video, I talked about how in these organized gang stalking expeditions, what they will do to a woman in reference to using what is known as the microwave hearing effect, voice morphing, voice modulating, and voice synthesizing the woman's voice into a computer, and the reasons why they're doing it. So you gotta watch that video in order to understand this one. And understand, if you watch that video, I made a statement at the beginning of that video, right when it was beginning to be made, at the very beginning of it, that you gotta take all of my statements and research the descriptions of what I state in reference to the name of the technology, the methods that are used to work hand in hand with the technology, every description, like names of places, names of the technology, names of the methods, they all need to be researched separately, and then all the information that comes up from each needs to be put together in order to see that everything that I stated was the truth. Now, you can go to YouTube right now and type in John Hall Satellite Terrorism. He talks about the microwave hearing effect, how they're using people's own voice prints to transmit dialogue sets into target individuals' audio cortex in order to bait them to go to places where crimes can happen to them. He discusses remote neural monitoring also in some of his YouTube videos. And if you watch some of his most recent ones that he's made in the last 2 years, you'll flat out see him talking about how they're harvesting EEG signatures and emotional clusters of targets, how the silent sound spectrum is being used in these criminal realities. Now, let me get some water here, and then I'll fly right into, and then I'm going to fly right into the addendum concerning what I forgot to include in the previous video. In the previous video, I talked about the stages of how they were tearing down this woman's life. That was one of the things that I talked about. But what I forgot to mention, as a result of how they were tearing down this woman's life, one of the things that they did in between, before the AA idiots or the NA idiots walked away from her, was that they got her to apply for Social Security and for social services. Now, they did this because they knew, okay, that, see, because basically what they will do is, before they start using the alcoholism towards this woman, in order to basically use that as a way to break her, and use that to plant the idea in her head that she lost the job because of the alcoholism. She was actually blacklisted from employment. Okay, but in her mind, she just probably figured she lost the job because of alcoholism, like missing days of work. No, they had already secretly worked from behind the scenes, or possibly even nearly influenced her employer to fire her. You would not believe the lengths of this technology, and how these criminal whores will basically do anything and everything, okay, to create the extreme poverty and destitution of a woman. Okay, because the story I told you in the first video, is it a story based on somebody of an actual gang stalking target? Okay, now you can go to Google and you can type in, you can go to Google right now and you can type in the microwave hearing effect in gang stalking. You can type in blacklisting and gang stalking. You can type in, hang on just one second, let me find this website because it's important. Okay, just one second. Should have found it before I turned on the video camera. I apologize for that, but it don't matter because it's only going to take a second. Okay, let's see what we got here. That's really weird. Oh, wait a minute, here it is. Okay. Here it is right here. Alright, now, I'm going to bring this up, the link that I just got done finding that I sent to one of my email files. I'll bring that up and show it to you again in a second. I showed it in the first one. Now, the additional addendum that I didn't bring up in the first video. So when you watch that video, include this statement in the step-by-step methodologies that were being utilized around her in order to bring about the human trafficking. As they were tearing down her life by using certain remote technologies, remote neural monitoring and the remote behavioral influencing technology, and I mentioned in the first video where you can find the PDF links that shows that technology in the first video. Now, as a result of using these technologies to transmit induced thoughts into this woman's head to get her to go to drink so they could get along her routes after she left the bar in order to arrest her, to set her up, to lead her into court-ordered AA. Now, I want to tell you something right now. When you're watching, you might see this video before watching the first one, and you might think to yourself, well, this doesn't even sound like something that would interest me. Understand what I'm telling you, please, fellow American citizens, and actually citizens in other countries, because these expeditions are going on in other countries as well. Understand, I not only talked about what was happening to this particular one woman, I also talked about what they're doing to children, wives, husbands, sons, daughters, family members, because these filthy sewer rat criminal whores are literally in every single town, city, county, and state in the United States. Literally. They are literally in every town. Okay? Now, the addendum, the second addendum, originally I said there was just an addendum, but there's actually two. One of the addendums was concerning how the employer can either be neurally influenced to fire her or can be told from behind the scenes to fire her through creative lies. Yeah, like she's under criminal investigation. We feel that it's we feel that it's in your best interest not to employ her anymore. And most employees don't want problems with the government. They'll just come up with an excuse to fire her. But little does she know that she will continue to be blacklisted, and that is done through syndicated members in at least the federal government and their connections to the local Chamber of Commerce employees who are syndicate members. Now, understand please, the second addendum is where in the midst of, once they started getting this woman to drink and laying the foundation to get her unemployed and then to keep her unemployed, they put ideas in her mind by inserting people along her routes. Okay, she could have been going to churches, she could have been going to charities, she could have been going to any other type of self-help group like Overeaters Anonymous. They could have put the idea in her head in a checkout line in a grocery store by getting behind her in a library and sitting around her and acting like they're just having a conversation either on their phone or with two people will stand around her and have a conversation, and they'll state things along the lines like, yeah, I just lost my job and I'm so tired of not being able to find one. I just went and applied for Social Security and miraculously I couldn't believe that I got it. That's what they'll say. That will put the thought in her head that she can do this, and they might also use the remote behavioral influencing technology, the microwave hearing effect, to put this thought in her mind as well. Now, as a result of the monitoring and possibly the induced thought for her to go there, she'll go there and then she'll apply and they will give her benefits. And the reason why they're doing this is because they want to treat her like a straw person. And basically what a straw person is in these types of expeditions is basically where they're going to use her for racketeering and insurance fraud. That's right. Now think about this. They're breaking this woman's down by constantly, periodically, intermittently stimulating the alcoholism neural pathway to get her and to excite her to go drink and to keep drinking until she goes through all of her money. When she's broke, she will then have no money for food, and by then they will probably have already come up with clever and creative means to keep the social services, which is state services, away from her, like food stamps. Now she's gonna not have no money because she drank all of her money away. And so she's already been trained to run to these AA these AA whores, okay, who are acting like they understand that she's just an alcoholic and that they're there to comfort her because they understand, because they used to be active alcoholics too. They're nothing but lying, filthy, sewer rat, wild whores. Most of them probably were never even alcoholics, okay? Basically what they were to put in her, they are set up in these meetings because they are pipelining people that they induced to go drink, drug their drinks, had the syndicated cops pull them over and arrest them, and then they are sent to court, and as a result the syndicated judges will send them to AA, or the police officer will tweak the police report to make it look so that she was drunk out of her mind, and as a result of her sentencing she has to go to AA. He is either a syndicated judge or he has been duped to do these things because they are a normal part of the court system. He might be a judge that don't even know what's going on. More than likely though he's a syndicated judge, okay? Just trust me. So she goes to AA, they get her to abandon her own thinking, because they're not only just stimulating the alcoholism to get her to go drink, where then she is arrested as a result of her being monitored, so they're watching her when she goes out of the bar. They got a syndicated cop ready to just pull her over once she gets a block or two away from the bar. She gets pulled over and arrested, okay? So they basically repeatedly do this until she'll even lose the car. They blacklisted her covertly from employment, so she eventually loses her apartment. She'll eventually lose her apartment. She'll have the Social Security to pay for the apartment, but they'll eventually have that taken away because they'll eventually get on board, bring on board the landlords. Now you can go to Google right now and type in organized stalking and or gang stalking in landlords and property owners. Okay, and since I'm also talking about the entire campaign of how I'm mentioning how they will create the homelessness, they will get landlords, property owners on board to, they will stage events at apartment buildings, blame the target for the event, and then use the landlord to evict the target. If they're not comfortable with that, they'll steal or delay the rent, even rent that's mailed certified mail return receipt. Through the United States Postal Service, go to Google and type in mail theft and mail delayment and postal workers and gang stalking and organized stalking. Now this is done to create the homelessness eventually, but the whole goal right now for at least a year or two, maybe 3 or 4, is that they are more concerned with creating and reinforcing neural pathways. Now they have to make sure that none of her original thoughts get in the way of what they're trying to entrain, and that's why they will massively stimulate her to drink on an escalated scale, in order to cause her to literally lose a bunch of stuff in her life all at once. This is going to create what is known as shock and awe, traumatic effects. She's going to think that her life is out of control because all of a sudden now she's got a drinking problem while she's lost her job. She's probably lost her car because they might have even staged a vehicle accident in one of the drinking bins, or they confiscated the car through impounding, and she didn't have the money to get it out as a result of it being impounded when she got arrested for the drinking and driving. There's a bunch of different maneuvers and schemes that they get on board in these expeditions. The whole goal for them is to take everything she's got in order to create dependency, because they want her to depend on them. That's why when she gets sent to these AAs, that's the reason why the drinking and driving was, you got to look at the video 1. Okay, I'm not going to go back and explain every little detail in this video about the first video, okay, in order for you to understand the sub-issues in this video. The sub-issues in this video directly correlate to what is mentioned in the first video. Now, they're basically, what they're doing is that they're sending her to AA, and AA was designed and developed for these purposes. Human trafficking and prostitution rings and drug addiction and alcoholism has been going on forever, and there are a lot of drug addicts who still have enough mental clarity, okay, who are experiencing these crimes in the same exact way, through the same exact methodologies, who might have enough mental clarity once they go to 1 or 2 NA meetings to not want to go back there, so they might pick AA instead. That's right, because it's the same 12 steps, okay? Just a different class of people, okay? In a sense. Now, what I'm trying to say here is this. When they get her to go to AA, they immediately bombard her. They'll act like that they understand completely what's happened to her, because they'll say that they have been there too. That's right. That's the whole goal in gang stalking. Now, let me just show you this. Let me just show you this really fast. In fact, I showed this. I showed this in the first video. This has to do with go to Google right now and type in lukesarmy.com. And look at the blog that's in it. There's a comment that's in this blog, okay, that says you can also find it by going into Google and typing in "protection corruption story: U.S. government kidnaps children for human trafficking and sexual exploitation." A woman got on here and she left her comment about the gang stalking of her in California here. Okay. That's right. Now, the gang stalking of her was perpetrated by a doctor who raped her, who ended up being a chemical microbiologist student at UC Davis, the University of California Davis campus. I'm gang stalked all over the University of California San Diego campus. Okay? Now, another person that's mentioned in this goes by the name of, let me find the piece of paper I wrote it down on. Just had it a second ago. Hold on. Curtis Webb. Curtis Webb is also mentioned in the gang stalking of this woman, who was not only raped by the doctor, but was also gang raped by his associates. Okay, from the Section 8 housing. Because gang stalking is a syndicate. This doctor was connected to that syndicate and she didn't know it. Okay, he used to be one of her roommates. He had her raped, she became pregnant, he did not want the child, so he ended up having her gang stalked. She went after him for child support. Since he was connected to gang stalking syndicate, which is connected to police officers, social services workers, and then they use their positions to get anybody in every place in the community to aid and abet in the gang stalking. Just trust me. I know you can go to Google right now and type in universities in gang stalking, college campuses in gang stalking, social services in gang stalking, social services workers in gang stalking, police officers in gang stalking, doctors in gang stalking, because it's a syndicate. Okay? Now, what you read, you might start to feel a little bit overwhelmed. You might start to think to yourself, well, this is impossible. How can all this be happening? Because gang stalking is a crime. It is a crime that is expedited by syndicate members in the system that have tentacles out within the community. And a lot of the ways that they get so many people in the community to harass a target for them is through law enforcement and the resources and tools they're connected to. Like, but not limited to, the community notification, the sexual offenders notification, the violent persons registry, that target individuals, completely innocent human beings, are being put on. I'll pick the camera back up in a second. That are being illegally and criminally put on, who should not be on these notification systems for no reason at all whatsoever. And once they are put on these notification systems, everybody is contacted. And then solicited harassment is then brought against the target individual everywhere the target individual goes, and any place that can be used for these criminal expeditions. See, what you got to understand here is that these social services workers and social security workers and police officers, they're actually part of the syndicate. But I'm not going to go too far off. Just Google and YouTube all my statements and then cross-reference the information that comes up. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make here is that because she was going after him for child support, he had her gang stalked. Once she got put on the gang stalking list, they got everybody and anybody they could to come after her. To take the child away from her, to put her into foster care. Money would have been made off that angle. The child would have been used for as a straw person. And she would have probably eventually got sucked into prostitution rings. It even states it in the comment feature. Now, the district attorney's there was a district attorney's office member mentioned in this concerning being connected to this crime syndicate, and his name is Curtis Webb. Now, I've been all over the internet exposed, and we're talking about the San Diego's District Attorney's Office. His name is Curtis Webb. It's flat out mentioned in this, along with how an FBI agent is mentioned in it as well. And it says that Curtis Webb works in the fraud department. The fraud department was the department they steered me to go into on October 7, 2010. 2 days later, I was brutally assaulted on an MTS bus. Now, so just go to that and you will see how human trafficking is being used in gang stalking. How a doctor that went to UC Davis, okay, was mentioned as far as being the perpetrator who perpetrated and initiated the gang stalking of her, and how a syndicated member in the San Diego District Attorney's Office, an actual district attorney member by the name of Curtis Webb, is mentioned by her. I believe every word she is saying up and down the road, because everything she is saying is practically a direct mirror concerning what other targeted individuals are exposing concerning the employment descriptions concerning that are being utilized against them. That's right. And you can also go to Google and type in Erica Dean Gilmore. She was also Section 8 housing. They're targeting the vulnerable is what they're doing. Okay? Now, getting back to this woman who got sent to AA, basically when she got sent to AA, it's a cult in AA that is run by cult crime syndicates that are in the system. And they set up these protocols and methods. What they are is they are a template of protocols, methods, tactics, and maneuvers. The initiation of the template of the maneuvers and methods are to bring the woman into the court. The court tells them to go to AA, and then the AA freaks take over in the next step of the methodologies that bring about the end result, human trafficking. It's a system of template of methods, tactics, maneuvers, and schemes to tear the woman's life down, to covertly tear it down, as well as even using her own mind and body to assist in it. Again, you got to look at the first video, okay, to tear it down, to bring it down, while making her believe that it's all her fault. And because of circumstances that don't seem to make no sense, and she'll even begin to believe that the alcoholism is because of some of it. Okay, like she can't find a job because she's alcoholic. She can't find a job because she didn't have enough money to even look for one, because she spent all of her money in her last alcoholic binge, when the actual alcoholic binge was stimulated using remote neural monitoring, brain stimulation. That's what the first video is about. Now, what they'll do is that they'll get her to apply for Social Security, and they'll get her to apply for Social Services. The Social Services will initially be given to her, but then once they get her further down into the destruction of her life, they'll be taken away from her. But the Social Security benefits will at least initially, they will at least let her keep those benefits for a few years. Now, what they'll do is that once they see that they have got her applied for Social Security, they might also, if she's a college student, get solicit her to take out school loans. Now, school loans is a debt that you can't get out of through bankruptcy, and they know it. That's right. Go to Google and YouTube and type in syndicated schools and gang stalking. In fact, a manager of gang stalking literally went offline and typed in who they are at an internet cafe. And I'm sorry, he went offline on his own computer, like in a Word program, and typed in who they are and what they're about. And then went to an internet cafe and posted it on the internet. Syndicated schools are mentioned right in it. Doctors, lawyers, judges, police officers, even an entire police department. That's right. And social services workers and lawyers are mentioned in the remote neural monitoring file that I talked about in the first video. Now, when we look at how this is nothing but a template, it's a template. If you were to make out a flowchart of saying, like, when a criminal thinks to themselves that they're going to break into a house, what are the steps that they do usually before they break into somebody's house? They'll sit down the street and monitor the family of that house. They'll learn their regular routines, their habits, where they go, where they regularly go on a daily basis, where they regularly might go on a weekend. Okay? How long they're gone for. Okay? How many people live in the house. If there's a man in the house, when they leave, when they come home. So they can deduce when the best time it would be for them to break in that house and get away with it. Okay? Including monitoring the neighbors' houses and their activities. Okay, because they got to worry about neighbors seeing what they're doing. This is what gang stalking does. They monitor, okay, and surveil a target individual that they plan on making into a target years before they actually start destroying their lives. And it also can take anywhere between 8 months to a year and a half to neurally choreograph the brain of a target. Okay? So, believe me when I say, they'll enter that target individual's life and pretend to be their friends, okay, to personally get to know how they think. So when they set up these terror campaigns of gang stalking, they can psychologically rape them. You would not believe what I know, you just would not believe it. But getting back to the addendum, basically what they'll do is that after they have set this up to where they've got her, they have now got her into AA. AA is teaching her to abandon all of her own thinking. So, and they have already got her into believing that all these wild binges that she has been on and rescued from, okay, by them, okay, she will fall into such deep depression while she's being programmed not to think about it, okay, to just run to AA, to physically get up and run to them and to depend on them for her needs because she has spent all of her money in the drink binges that they stimulated. So basically what they're doing is tearing down her life, tearing down her self-belief in her own self to take care of herself, creating bad circumstances where she can't take care of herself by creating the blacklisting. And the only thing that she believes that she's got to depend on now is her Social Security. And she has been due to believe that if she just keeps coming back to AA, that she'll get it and that she'll be able to stop drinking, even though they're still continually stimulate her to drink, okay? Like right before she gets paid or right after she gets paid with Social Security. She then goes through all of her money. She then's got to run back to AA and run back to them in order to get fed. They'll steer her to picnics, charity groups, churches that she might be able to depend on, food banks, Salvation Army. She'll still have her social services food stamp card by now, but they'll take that away from her eventually. Now, what they'll do now is that they'll start to prepare to bring her into the next step of this campaign. Remember, it's a template of maneuvers, methods, and tactics. They've already brained and trained her to run to AA and run to these people. Now you may think to yourself, well, why would they do that if they're going to walk away? I'll get to that in a minute. Now what they're going to do is that they brained and trained her for anywhere between 1 to 3 to 4 to 5 years, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less, to depend on them. They've got her to give up on her own thinking, because once you beat a dog down, that dog is just going to give up. He's just going to sit in a corner hoping to be fed, and he won't even move because he knows that every time he has tried to be just a dog, he's been beaten down and abused. And that's basically what they're doing with the stimulating of the alcoholism. They're basically just putting her into such... They're basically making her binge drink every month to get her to go through her money so she has nothing. Okay, she's lucky she's even paid her rent first. They'll even attempt to get her to sign over her checks to them. That's right, and that's another entrapment neural network. Okay, see what they'll do is that they'll stage a bin right before she gets paid, because they've not only inserted AA people into her life, but they've also inserted other people along her routes that act like they don't even know these AA people. They'll just act like they stumbled across her, like maybe at a grocery store, at a park, maybe at a church, whatever. Hold on. Trust me, they're not just setting up one set of people in her life. They're setting up a group of people that are separate from AA, and more than likely another set. The AA set and another group. Now, basically what they're doing is they're going to play ping pong with her. Okay, they're going to set her up to binge drink to where she even went through her money and can't pay her rent. And they'll offer to pay her rent as long as she pays them back during their next check. Hold on. And they'll make sure that they arrange to meet her before the post office mails her check next month, or before, if she's got direct deposit, they'll make sure that they got her in their car the night before, or that morning before she leaves her house that morning to go to the bank. Okay? And what they'll do is they'll keep doing this to her. And that's done to put ideas in her head that, why don't you just sign over your checks to me? Or why don't you just have your checks come to me? Or why don't I just meet you at your house before you even leave the house? That way we can at least make sure that you got your rent paid. And then after that's done, they'll stimulate her to drink, so the rest of her money from her check is spent on alcoholism. And that's done in order to make sure that for the rest of the month, she is dedicated to every day going to AA, because she has nothing to do now. She don't want to sit at home. She's probably already being stimulated to run back to AA, because that's already that is already a entrained neural pathway to run to them. remote neural monitoring brain stimulation. They're creating neural networks of thoughts and ideas and motor cortex associated actions getting up and going. They're creating them and reinforcing them. Okay, and then once these neural pathways that hold these thoughts and motor cortex associated behaviors are created and reinforced, they can stimulate those neural pathways back into consciousness in real time to be rethought out and reacted upon. So once they create a neural pathway for her to run to AA and run to these people, once they have created this neural pathway and reinforced it, they identify it using remote neural monitoring and stimulate it back into consciousness in real time at all times, and everything that is in that neural pathway is reacted on and rethought about. All the thoughts that are in that neural pathway and all the actions are reacted out and rethought out. So she just thinks she's having another thought to go back to AA. Okay? Now, let me bring this up so I can literally show it to you. Go to Google right now and type in, brainwave frequency list. Brainwave frequency listing. Just do it. I'm going to do it right now in front of you and show you. Okay, I got this voice command feature in this. Okay. Brainwave frequency listing. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally bring it up. I'm literally going to bring up the website that literally shows that there's a frequency dedicated to for alcoholism, drug addiction, post-traumatic stress. Okay, it literally says it right here. Brainwave frequency listing. I'm literally going to show it to you. Okay, hold on. See it? Brainwave frequency listing. And if you go to the very, very bottom of Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance and look on the very bottom of their webpage, you'll see the remote neural monitoring file, the remote behavioral influencing file, and the directed energy weapon file. They talk about brain entrainment, frequencies. Okay? Here's another one. Brainwave frequencies change state of consciousness. Now I'm going to click on this one, brainwave frequency listing. Okay, I'm clicking on it and bringing it up through browser. And now that I got my glasses on, what I'm going to do is enlarge it. Okay, and let's see if this is the one that I was thinking of. Cycles per second. Let's see what we got here. Okay, yeah, it literally says it. Brainwave frequencies. These are frequencies associated with various mental states using brain entrainment. Okay, and let's see what we got here. Now on this website, you're gonna be able to. There's gonna be features in here for you to click on that will literally bring up the list that shows how certain brain states can be stimulated using brain frequencies. Okay. Now that's got to do with the brain stimulation of remote neural monitoring. Okay. Now, what they're gonna do with this girl is they're gonna what they're gonna do is they're gonna then start. They got two sets of people set up in her life. Now, one of these sets of people, what they'll do is they'll start putting ideas in her head that she can possibly get a little money from a guy if she's nice to him. Now, if she's a religious person, she's going to say no automatically. Or if she's a moral person, or if she ain't that kind of girl, she's going to say no automatically because she knows in her mind that she can run to these AA people for help. But these AA people, what they're going to start doing is they're going to start creating problems at these AA meetings. They're going to start creating arguments. They're going to start creating, they're going to start being rude to her. They're going to start creating the environment so uncomfortable for her to go to it at and offending her that she's not going to want to go back. Because remember, they have already created a psychological profile on her. So they know how to anger her. They know what makes her upset. So what they're going to do is create what is called street theaters, where they're going to literally bring about physical and verbal theatrics to make her angry, to make her so uncomfortable she won't want to go back. But these other people have already situated themselves in her life, either through the acquaintance level or a little bit more of a social level. Now they're gonna still remotely stimulate her to drink. Now they're gonna make it so uncomfortable for her to not want to go back to AA, and she's probably already figuring it out by now that they're not helping her because she's still relapsing, even though that she don't know that they're stimulating her to relapse. She'll just look at it, well, what am I getting from these people? She'll eventually come to that thinking. Or they might even induce that thinking into her mind. Okay, the whole goal is to get her to walk away from AA, while these other people are putting ideas in her head, social ideas. Well, you know, if there's nothing wrong with sex. I don't think there's nothing wrong with sex, and if you ever needed something, I could maybe help you out. Now she's all alone. Remote neural monitoring and microwave hearing effect can put thoughts in her head. Well, maybe I could just sleep with this one guy this one time. It's not that big of a deal, and I'll get some money from him, maybe 50, 100 bucks, 200 bucks. You know, and since maybe I haven't drank, you know, she might think to herself, you know, that she hasn't drank in 30 days, that she might be all right to have money, so she'll do it. And guess what's being entrained as she's doing this and contemplating it and being induced to think these thoughts using the remote behavioral influencing technology? She's being brain entrained for prostitution. Now, once these ideas and motor cortex associated behaviors come about, they will identify and mark the resonance frequency of that neural pathway and stimulate those ideas and those behaviors back into consciousness in real time, even multiple times in one day, for men that will come across her path before, during, and after they have now created the homelessness of her by getting landlords and property owners on board. Now, she can't run to the AA freaks because they just made this situation so uncomfortable, and the sponsors that used to supposedly be her sponsor will magically, she might even have the idea to run back to an AA meeting to see if she can regain some help. Well, when she goes to these, they know where she's going, and the people that used to be in her life, the sponsors she used to be able to depend on, aren't there. And magically, their voicemail is full. This is done in order to attempt to literally put her out on the street. And this will be done for a month or 2 or 3, and she might be lucky enough to have the thought to go camping. Okay? Now remember, you can Google every description I've stated, because you got to understand these are all different methods, tactics, and maneuvers that are used to come together to bring about the desired result. She's not homeless. She's a step away from now being exploited on the street because they're still stimulating her to drink. Okay? Now remember, she's still got Social Security and Medicare. Now, one of these freaked out skanks, maybe not one of her old sponsors, but maybe somebody that she used to get along with at AA, might stumble across her path on a bike route, on a bus route, or at a grocery store. Okay? And they might put an idea in her head, okay, that, well, you know, if you're down and out, they might say, hey, what's going on? Well, I've run into bad luck, and I ain't got no money, and I ain't got nowhere to go. They might slip her a $20 bill and say, well, you know what? I used to know somebody that was in really bad shape like you are right now, and they told me in order to get help that all you got to do is call 911 and say you're suicidal, and the fire department, EMS, or the ambulance will come out and take you to the hospital, and then they will set you up with all different kinds of social services workers, and then you can get all these different kind of resources. And she thinks to herself, well, maybe that's not really for me, and she might go back to her hiking area, or she might go back to an abandoned bus or something that she, you know, was in, but she's still got the hunger, and she's broke because they stimulated another relapse. So they know that they put this idea in her head, but what they're actually doing is putting this idea in her head to see if she'll think about it, because they're monitoring her audio cortex. But actually what they're doing is putting this idea in her head to make her think that the now induced thoughts that they're putting in her head to actually do this are her own, because she's been presented with the idea. See, because what you got to understand here is that she doesn't know that the thoughts to go to drink are not her own. Remember, go to YouTube and type in John Hall Satellite Terrorism. They literally put the thought in his fiance's head to go have a drink, and then she was raped. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, you got to make sure you look at the first video. So the point I'm trying to make here is this, was they put the idea in her head that she could go to the hospital by calling 911 and saying she was suicidal, okay, in order to get help from social services workers. Now, what they would then do is use the microwave hearing effect to actually put the thought in her head to do this using her own voice print, which was clearly mentioned in the first video. And they will excite the get up and go response to literally get up to go to the phone to do it. She then calls 911, the ambulance comes out, she believes that she'll get this help if she says she's suicidal. She tells the EMS that she's suicidal, and guess what happens? They put her in a psychiatric floor. and diagnose her with bipolar or paranoid schizophrenic or schizophrenia. They dupe her into giving her all this information about how many times she's been into possibly rehabs, because she doesn't know that all this stuff is happening to her covertly, and she's believing that she'll still get help. Hold on. Well, why did they do this? They did it for the insurance fraud. Whenever you have anywhere between a 7-day to 14-day to a 21-day hospital stay, and then the aftercare, these doctors are getting thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars from Medicare for this. But now this has become an entrained pathway. All I have to do is call 911 and I'll get some help. Okay, remember, when they stimulate, whether it's an entrained neural pathway or an induced thought, when they're inducing these thoughts, they're inducing them on a timed, constant rate while stimulating anxiety, while stimulating the get up and go response. And when they stimulate, when they induce these thoughts override all other conscious deliberations, because it's one, that's like, do you think that you can read 2 books at the same time? Okay? It's the same concept of when you're on the phone and you got a teenager or a child standing literally a half a foot away from you, talking really loud, screaming really loud, and you can't hear what's on the phone. Same concept. When you're being hit with this technology and they're transmitting thoughts into your audio cortex using your own voice print, it's kept on a timed, constant rate. It crowds out all your other conscious deliberations while they're also stimulating anxiety in the brain state that controls anxiety, and the physiological innate response of get up and go. Get up and go, call 911 again because the thought's telling you to do it. And this is so they can bilk the Medicare again. While in between, once they released you, they also, like right before payday, they've also stimulated her to drink again, because they don't want her to have no money, because the money is what's giving her money for the food so she can survive all month. If they stimulate her to drink, she's going to go through all the money. She'll then be broke. She has no AA people to run to. The food stamps have been cut off because the social services workers connected to these syndicates. And she's never reachable. If she manages to get a bus fare to go down to the social services office, she's told that the worker's on vacation, that the worker's sick, or that the or she calls, the voicemail's full. She might even go down there and they might not be there, but she might leave a message to start the food stamps up again, but for whatever reason they won't do it, and she won't even have the bus fare to continue to go back, while other thoughts are being, and they're monitoring everything she's doing. So if she's seeing that she's getting out of control and trying to take care of herself, they'll re-stimulate that thought, or put that thought in her head to call 911 again. Now, they also will take these accumulated mental diagnoses, because every time she calls 911 and they bilk the Medicare, they got to make it look like the Medicare bilking is being done for a legitimate reason. So they take these accumulated documentations over time and will create an event in order to make it appear that they got a legitimate appearing reason to petition the state to make her a legal ward of the state and put her in a syndicated run group home to co-op her monthly Social Security checks. And the gang stalking of her will continue in these homes, except for now that she won't be able to drink, what they'll do is create arguments towards her in these homes, blame her for it, and then claim that she's out of control because she's bipolar, and that she's got to go back into the hospital to get on different medication because she's out of control. This is done to continue to bilk the Medicare and for continued reinforcement of the diagnoses on paper in order to keep the syndicated probate control. It's a scheme based on maneuvers, methods, tactics, and technology. So basically, they have created a neural slave, and in these syndicated run group homes, they will also drug her food, rape, bring men in her, drug her food, wait till she's knocked out, bring men in to rape her in her own room, and videotape it and sell that videotape to pornography groups. Money off at every angle. They now got her Social Security, they're bilking her Medicare, and they're raping her. You understand? Now, these are the horrific schemes, and they're also continually using this woman for non-consensual human experimentation. Because every time they create an event towards her in these homes, you know, what they'll do is they'll either neurally manipulate a fellow client, or they'll even use a syndicate member to act as a fellow client. because they'll rotate clients, and they'll bring one syndicate member to come in and literally act out and pretend to be a client who's also a client of the home. That client, as a result of that client supposedly having another mental illness, will act out and provoke the target individual. The target individual will have a normal response and react to them being threatened, and then the group home owner and the other clients, or that client, will blame it on that target. Okay? Now, this is done so when the target experiences all the anger and depression and frustration because they just want to be left alone, they're processing brain states. Frustration, anger, helplessness, powerlessness over the whole situation. These are emotional clusters and EEG signatures. They're harvesting them. So they're intentionally creating and inciting events that bring about brain states so these brain states can be harvested. The EEG signatures that are connected to them, and the emotional clusters. And this is where the non-consensual human experimentation come into play at, because the research that comes from them is also sold. Torture for money, sexual exploitation for money, and kidnapping for money. The gang stalking will also continue towards the target individual on the psychiatric floor after a staged event happens in these homes, and then since the group home owner has syndicated probate control, they will petition the target back in a county mental health or an area neighborhood hospital psychiatric floor where these syndicated doctors work at, okay? And what they'll do is place other clients, other syndicate members in there, okay, to gang stalk the target when they're in there, or other individuals who are targets where this crime is happening to them will be neurally influenced to do things towards the target while they're in there. Because you gotta remember, once these brain states and EEG signatures and EEG clusters and emotional clusters have been harvested, they can be stimulated back in real time at all times. So if you got one target from one home in the same psychiatric floor as the target individual from that home is put in there, that target can be brought into rage to act out against this target. Also, that target will experience brain states of anger, frustration, violence. So all that can be neurally choreographed. Torture, it's literal torture, all happening now in isolated environments. And the target individual can never escape, because even if they try to physically escape, the group owners are seeing that they're running, and they will get on their phone and call the syndicated cops to answer the call. Like if the target breaks away and runs to a neighbor's house, they'll say, I'm being raped, I'm being physically abused. Okay, the syndicated cop who answers the call will act like that they're going to take care of the situation. The target will be led physically back into the home, and then they will be taken back to the psychiatric floor. And a falsified police report will be made. That's right. And they own many homes. One syndicate can own 8 homes. And each home can house anywhere between 7 and 11 targets that they're doing this to. This is just one aspect of the human trafficking. They can also just keep the woman out on the street and sexually exploit the hell out of her by continually stimulating drug addiction and alcoholism. And then she's got to eat throughout the month. They can take her Social Security away until they can get a hold of her through these staged events that bring about police reports and doctor reports, okay? And then they use those to take syndicated probate control, and then will reapply for the federal benefits in her name and state benefits. Straw people, torture for money. I made this video to inform, to expose the truth. Go to YouTube and type in John Hall Satellite Terrorism. You'll clearly hear him mention about how they can put thoughts into these women's head to go have drinks. And guess who magically appears outside of these bars when these women have these drinks? Syndicated cops who arrest them, and through the courts they're connected to and the judges, they go to AA. You gotta watch the first video this is connected to. Now, as far as any filthy lion, filthy sewer rat whores that are watching this video, and I know they are because cyber surveillance is directly connected to gang stalking perpetrators, right there, right friggin' there, okay? That's right. I'm in San Diego, California, and my name is Leslie Williams. I am a target of organized stalking and gang stalking. I do not do drugs, I do not drink, I do not sleep around, I do not steal. I am a Christian woman. The homelessness you're seeing me in right now was created by them. It's a nationwide syndicate that is up and operating in every state in the United States, every town, every city, in every government. I made this video to inform, to expose the truth, so the truth can be known for what it is. Again, you got to watch the first video of this two-part video series to see the entire scope of what I'm saying, and you will see that I'm telling you the truth. Human trafficking, torture for money, where a human being's life has been completely taken from them for money. And you just would not believe the torture that is attached to these crimes. I do appreciate you listening, and have a nice day.